Thank you. So that was 2 or 3 songs mixed into each other. So can we have the visual, please? So as I was saying, thank you. So as I was saying, this was when I started performing fusion music, and this was, of course, when I was 17. And can we have the next slide? So as I was saying, I started changing the way I was performing. Of course, I never gave up on Carnatic music, but I was changing the way and adapting to different ways, adapting to different genres of music. I started learning Western classical music. I also started learning Hindustani music. So next slide. This is when I got my National Award for the Best Violinist of India, and thank you. This was in Chennai. It was from the All India Radio, and I was awarded that. Next slide, please. So this is when I performed in the then Asia's biggest mall. This was in Mantri Mall. This was when I started performing fusion music. So this was I was still sticking to my roots of sitting down, but the way of music that I was performing, I started blending in different genres of music, different ways of blending in Carnatic with Western styles, Carnatic with Bollywood, Carnatic music with traditional folk music. So this was that. The next slide. This was when I worked with one of A.R. Rahman's singers, Mr. Srinivas. He is one of the most famous singers in Chennai. Next slide. And multiple slides of me when I started performing. This was a Karnataka Rajyotsava Award. This was, again, sticking to my roots. Even though I was doing my fusion, I was doing other genres of music, I never ever stopped. Some people, you get carried away when things are going very well. You give up your roots. The minute you give up your roots, it's like uprooting a tree. As long as it keeps growing, it's fine. But as you get many branches, you get carried away and you uproot yourself, that's the end. Next slide. So I always stuck to Carnatic music, yes. I believe that whatever your roots are, whichever part of the world that you go to, because you take an Indian and you put him anywhere, any part of the world, you put him in Iceland, to US, to UK, to Europe, to wherever, he can still survive. That's because we Indians are all very, very deep-rooted into our traditions, our cultures, and the way we are. So yes, I think we should all give ourselves a big round of applause. So even when I was 21, that was when this concert happened. I told you I performed at the ISKCON temple. This was a follow-up concert, that we had at the ISKCON again. Next slide. And then I started really experimenting. So I can proudly say that I have taken the violin to a place that was never seen before. So this was an art exhibition. I combined art with music. Next slide. This was when I was just talking to Mr. Dayananda about, me trying to do music for the 100. It was almost through when you call up the police in Bangalore, my music was supposed to play. It was there for a very short period of time. And this was when I made music to reduce the road rage back then. Next slide, please. This was when, I performed for for Guruji Sai Baba. Next slide. This again, to again get you back, even though I was doing all that, I was still performing my 100 or 200 episodes on Shankara TV, just pure Carnatic classical music. That was still going on. Next slide. And then I started performing for hospitals. This was for Vikram Group, where I did multiple events for patients who needed therapy with music. So a violin had never been, thank you. So I can also say that last year we did a fundraiser, and in one evening through my musical concert, they collected almost close to 75 lakhs in one night. And the goal of this operation was to conduct 300 free surgeries for 300 poor patients. By poor, I mean that they are suffering, but they don't have enough money to undergo the treatment. And I'm very, very happy to announce that 200 of the surgeries have been completed successfully. So this was when I was performing for Vikram. Next slide, please. We'll go through it fast. And yeah, this image, I think it needs a big round of applause, everyone. Come on, you have to. I met him when he had come to Christ College and explained his vision of 2020. Abdul Kalam ji was fantastic. And, I met him recently when he, just before, I think, unfortunately passed away. And of course, we went to his samadhi at, his samadhi, and we performed and we did a lot of things for Abdul Kalam ji on his birthday. So, very, very great person. And then multiple concerts, I started performing at different venues. I tried performing at weddings. This was one of the very, very early photos of what I did in weddings. Next slide. And then, we can just go through until I stay stopped. This was for around 35,000 people that I performed in Vizag. It was called Vadya Dhyanam. All of them started meditating. And this, and the slide before this was when you can see the transition from sitting to where I was in the middle, and then I started standing and performing not only Carnatic music, but different genres of music. So this was my transformation as an artist from where I was to where I am. Let's go through. And I partnered up with Mercedes-Benz. We did multiple shoots for them. The violin as an instrument was combined with cars. I did the launch of the e-cabriolet of Mercedes-Benz. Next slide. Multiple shoots for various car brands. This was for one of my personal shoots. Next, can we go through? And so this is how I started evolving. The slide before this was when I performed at the US. The first time that I performed at the US. After I started playing fusion music, I had performed Carnatic before that. Next slide, please. Next slide. And then up top you can see that I started combining music with fashion. So when I started doing this, I started walking on ramp with models, and then just before that I had developed this name called the walking violinist, or the wireless walking violinist. So we'll stop with this slide as of now. I'm going to play the next song, which is going to be, thank you. So the next song is going to be the song where I'm going to show you what the wireless walking violinist, what that means. Okay, so this is going to be, do you want a Hindi song or do you want an English song? This side is saying it's becoming English now. Okay, so let me do this. I'll combine both. So we're going to start off with a song by Louis Fonsi, and we're going to mix that with another song which is sung by Arijit Singh. So it should be fun. Also, can you reduce the violins on that monitor, please? Thank you, and that is called the Aneesh Vidyashankar experience. Did you like that? Fantastic. So guys, what they didn't announce is I'm a Christite too. So it kind of makes it much more special for me to be on stage talking to all of you. And even though I didn't study in this campus, Christite always remains a Christite, as you know. So can we have a huge round of cheers for all the Christites out there? Fantastic. So let me just talk about, that was of course the song Kabira and Closer mashed up together. And it was something that, you know, I have been doing for a long time, and it just works so well together. And I did also talk to Message Vidya Walks about it, and huge shout out to her as well for her mashup. So anyway, nonetheless, let me just get on with a couple of things I wanted to tell you guys. So can we start from slide number 1, please? Can we dim the lights on the stage a little bit, please, so that they can see the slides? That's me. I've always been automotive buff all my life, and we can go slide by slide, please. First slide. Go up, 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 up. Okay, so we all have to blame those guys, okay? So, yeah, leave it like this. This is cool. It works. So, this is when I was, you know, around 4. And that's when I started playing the violin. I started playing when I was 3, but that image was taken when I was 4. So, can we go to the next slide, please? This was the first time I got featured, you know, in a newspaper, and it was in a paper called The Asian Age, which is now Deccan Chronicle. And this was when I performed for Infosys for Mrs. Neelekani, and that was when I was 6. So I started off as a young Carnatic musician. Next slide, please. And this was in 2002 when I was 11. This was one of the biggest articles that Deccan Herald did, you know, to showcase the violin maestro in making. I hope at least it's made now. Do you think so? Oh, you do? Okay. So this is that. Next slide. So this is how I started my life as a Carnatic musician, playing at the different festivals. This was, of course, one of my very, very initial performances. Next slide. So this is how, from sitting down and performing on the dais and to where I am today, this is just a journey of how my life has been. Next slide. This was, of course, at the ISKCON temple in Bangalore. I'm one of the only Hindus to have performed at a church, at the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, as well as a temple. So there is no bar on caste, creed, religion, etc., as long as you know where you want to be. Next slide. That was me at one of very, very prestigious events. Unfortunately, they haven't got the full photo. There was the then Chief Minister, you know, who was Mr. Krishna. He was there for my performance, and his wife, you know, was hosting this event. So this was where the event was. The next slide. And so on and so forth. You know, these were the features, my initial features in the newspaper. Next. So these are a couple of them for you to take a look at. Next. And actually, more than my photo, the photo next to the cop and the lady over there, the lady is shouting at the cop. So this was really famous because they were like, oh, you're featured next to that. And this was when I was in Christ College. So this was way back in 2007 when I was in the main university. And I had the best 2 years of my life at Christ. And this was one of the features then, and it made me get a very good grade in my practicals, because that day I hadn't studied. I went there with this newspaper and they were like, oh, awesome. So they gave me good grades and everything. So I remember this really, really well. So, of course, next slide. And then, you know, things kept on moving in a direction wherein you can see that I used to sit and perform before on the floor. And then now you can slowly see me, you know, from the floor. I have developed another method of sitting on top and performing. I was tending towards the fusion, but I never forgot my roots in Carnatic music because I happen to come from the Lalgudi Jayaraman School of Violin Playing, which happens to be one of the most prestigious and one of the most intricate ways of violin playing in the Carnatic classical music scene. Next slide. This was when I released my first album, and as you can see in this, I'm standing, I'm not sitting down. Next slide. And this was when things started changing. How did I take my music to the next level? So we'll stop at this slide. The next song we're going to be playing is going to be a very famous song, and we treated to Deepika Padukone also with this song, and we'll play the song directly, and I hope you guys like it. And we'll talk about what happened after this next. So one more big round of applause, everyone, for Christites and Today. Thank you. So that was, of course, the song Despacito and Tumi Ho, and we are running short of time, so can we very quickly go through the slides? Can we keep changing the slides, please? Next slide. And this was how I started off as going into fashion, going into photography, going into taking the music into different genres and the places where they are. Next song. Next slide, sorry. This was when I met Sri Vidyashankar ji, and I went, the spiritual route I took. I performed for a lot of spiritual gurus. Next slide. This was when I performed, for a crowd at the yoga day. Next slide. Next slide, please. Can we keep going through? Yeah, and this was when I started performing at weddings, and I was one of the best. I am one of the best 3 acts in a wedding in all over India, according to Femina Miss World. Can we have next slide? This is when I made. Thank you. This is when I made music for a cause for the awful things happening in Delhi. So actually, Monjoti and me did a lot of stuff back then with for a cause. Next slide. When I performed at Christ, this was my performance at Christ. So, of course, this is where I am today. Next slide. This is going to be my... Do you guys want... Do we have time for one more song? The organizers will really be hitting their heads now because we're really running out of time. This was when I performed for Yash and Radhika. It was their wedding and I performed. I walked them down the aisle, took them onto the stage, etc. Next slide. This is what I do for our CM. I walk him onto various different platforms. Next slide. This is when I performed for the Mrs. India pageant in Chennai, and we walked the Mrs. Karnataka as well, so I ramp walked with them. Next slide. This is when I performed for the Rally for Rivers, to save our environment, to save our rivers. This is for Sadhguru. Next slide. Yeah, your favorite, Baba Ramdev. So launched some of his, we launched, a couple of things, TV channel with him, etc. Next slide. Actually, I was telling my friends I'm going to take a selfie with Baba Ramdev. Everyone started laughing. They're like, oh, how will you get a selfie? So that was just to prove them. I combine my music now with a lot of fashion. This is a very, very formal tuxedo, that I sported for one of my fashion designers, personal event. Next slide. Various different bike shoots on for Harley Davidson, Triumph, you name it, etc., etc. Next slide. This is my video that went viral with over 1 million views, my national anthem. Yes, the Indian national anthem. Next slide. So this is where I am today, and I'm known as the wireless walking violinist because I walk and play the violin at the same time. Next slide. Karishma Kapoor, I recently met her for an event, and she was really blown away by my music. I walked her onto the stage. Next slide. This is me walking, running. They call me the dancing violinist, so that's that. Next slide. This is the GES 2017 for Ivanka Trump and Narendra Modi. Next slide. This is when I was in the US, and this is who I am today. I'm known as the wireless walking violinist. So that's me, guys, and this is my story of how I transformed into a young Carnatic classical violinist into where I am today. I've taken my music abroad. I've taken my music to around 27 countries. I've taken my music to spiritual gurus, to software giants, to people, in our politics arena. I've taken my music to fashion. I've taken my music to automobiles, and I've also taken my music to wonderful students like you. So your boundaries are limitless. The violin as an instrument without amplification can be heard only to the first row over here. Today we have around 600 to 800 of you sitting in the crowd and enjoying the music. So it's what you do and how you do things that matter. You have to be smart in the way you move forward. You should look, I think all the speakers who spoke before me told you many, many important things. Hard work, yes, you need hard work, but just hard work does not give you results. You need to be smart, you need to plan your way forward, you also need to stick to your roots, and you also need to put in a lot of hard work and learn to respect things. Because once you stop respecting, even today, I don't cross over my violin. It's not a matter of, something will happen to the violin, but I don't cross it with my leg because it's just the respect that I have for the instrument. Only when you start respecting your instrument, only when you start respecting the life and thanking yourself for where you are today, and just pause and think of where you are today, that's when you can move forward and you can also, succeed. And I would not have been here talking in front of you if it were not for my father and guru, Mr. Vidyashankar. I don't know where he is. So can we give a big round of applause to him? So he's been my backbone all along. Yeah, he's there. So the final song, and we're going to close it. So this is the final song for today. You guys know which song this is, so you need to clap louder, everyone. Come on, can we hear you? out and the flashlights up in the air. Everyone, come on. Can we see it? Can we dim the lights on the stage? And more flashlights. Come on, everyone. The view over here is amazing. So, photographers on the stage, wave with me. Christ College of Wonderful Christ University, sorry. So can we get a huge round of cheer from the crowd? Awesome, guys. Did you guys enjoy that? I'm so humbled to be here today, and you guys were a wonderful crowd here. Can you give yourselves a big round of applause, everyone? I think we had a fantastic time on stage, so I just like to introduce my artist, Sharan Rao on the keyboard, Manjoti on the guitar, and Amoga on the drums, and yours truly on the violin. So, yeah, please take your seat. Thank you. It's been amazing, and I'm really humbled to get a standing ovation from all of you. I think we've exceeded time by around 5 to 6 minutes, but I hope that's okay. I hope you enjoyed it. And the main thing today is just to move forward, be smart, work hard, and you'll get where you want to be.